Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you've been feeling like you need a daily update just to keep pace with AI, you are absolutely not alone.
Yeah.
It feels like every single day there's a new breakthrough, a new product, or, another big debate swirling around artificial intelligence.
It's genuinely hard to keep up.
It really is. But that's exactly what this deep dive is for today.
That's right. Today, we're trying to cut through that dizzying pace to explore the latest moves in what people are calling the AI arms race.
Hmm.
We're talking about new capabilities being rolled out, strategic shifts by the major players, and just the evolving competitive landscape, especially, OpenAI, Google, Anthropic dominating things.
And to bring you this overview, we've pulled insights from, well, a stack of tech news sources, ZDNet, 9 to 5 Google, VentureBeat, Android Authority, places like that. Our mission here is to kind of extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from these sources and help you understand what these recent developments really mean. How AI is evolving, particularly for enterprise applications and just real-world stuff.
So let's jump right into OpenAI then, because they've made some truly significant strategic plays recently.
Okay, let's unpack this first one. OpenAI has landed a substantial contract with the U.S. Department of Defense. We're talking up to $200 million.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's a huge deal for any tech company, let alone one, relatively new to these direct government contracts. What's the core focus here?
Well, the main idea is helping the DoD identify and build prototype systems using OpenAI's frontier models.
Right.
Think administrative tasks, mostly, like helping service members with healthcare questions or streamlining data on programs. It also explicitly mentions supporting proactive cyber defense.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The DoD's announcement used slightly broader wording. They said the contract is for developing prototype AI capabilities for warfighting and enterprise domains.
Right.
That phrase, warfighting, definitely raises an eyebrow, especially because OpenAI's own guidelines, well, they used to forbid military and warfare uses. And that specific prohibition was deleted back in January 2024. What do you make of that timing?
Well, it's incredibly strategic, isn't it? It signals a pretty clear shift. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, this direct contract could actually put a bit of a squeeze on Microsoft.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, Microsoft has this long history, right? Thousands of federal contracts. But their Azure OpenAI service only just got approval for all classified levels back in April.
Ah, okay.
Meanwhile, OpenAI has clearly been building out this broader OpenAI for Government program. They're already consolidating direct sales to agencies like the National Labs, Air Force Research Lab, NASA, NIH, the Treasury.
So they're making a direct play, skipping the middleman, in a way.
Exactly. They're going straight for the public sector business.
Okay, so we've seen OpenAI making these high-level strategic moves with government. But what about, making their tools more practical for everyday businesses? It seems like they're tackling a big hurdle now, connecting ChatGPT to a company's own internal data. Often siloed data, right?
Yes, absolutely. And they're doing this by making Anthropic's Model Context Protocol, or MCP, available right inside ChatGPT.
MCP. Okay, I've heard that term floating around.
And what's truly fascinating here is how quickly MCP seems to be gaining traction as like an industry standard. It's this open protocol, and you've got Google, OpenAI, Microsoft. They've all adopted it for, seamlessly integrating data with their AI systems.
And for good reason, I imagine. So what does this actually mean for enterprise users? What can they do now?
Well, the power here is really about deeply integrating ChatGPT with their own, often previously isolated company data. This lets AI agents kind of power themselves using ChatGPT's deep research feature. So employees can access internal company knowledge directly through the chatbot.
Right.
OpenAI first adopted MCP back in April with its SDK, and right now the capabilities are mostly focused on search and document retrieval.
Got it. So it involves some setup, I assume.
Yeah, there's some technical work involved, like building an MCP server for deep research, creating a custom connector in ChatGPT, giving it good instructions. But the payoff is potentially huge. ChatGPT Enterprise, Edu, and team users can then publish this connector to their whole workspace as a knowledge source. OpenAI even provides guidance for setting up authentication and testing it out.
That sounds incredibly powerful. But, it also immediately raises red flags for me around security. Connecting your company's private data like this. what are the big risks?
Yeah, you're absolutely right to ask that. OpenAI themselves have warned that these custom MCP servers aren't vetted by them.
Okay.
So there's a real risk of things like prompt injections or, malicious hidden directives.
Yikes.
They specifically advise against connecting to a custom MCP server unless you know and trust the underlying application. They suggest using official servers from established service providers over, say, third-party custom ones.
Right. Stick to the known quantities if possible.
Exactly. And users are also cautioned to review their own tools carefully for sensitive info because these MCP servers do allow OpenAI to access that company data. So, yeah, the power definitely comes with significant responsibility.
Okay, so while OpenAI is making these big strides, not all their recent moves have been met with open arms, right? There's been a fair bit of developer frustration lately about them deprecating GPT 4.5 preview.
That's right. Yeah, some unhappiness there.
I know many developers consider GPT 4.5 like a daily tool because of its tone and reliability.
Yeah, word spread pretty quickly when OpenAI sent out emails saying GPT 4.5 preview would be removed from the official API on July 14th, 2025.
Okay, so removed from the API.
Exactly. It's important to clarify that GPT 4.5 preview will actually remain an option for individual ChatGPT users, through the drop-down model selector menu in the app itself.
Ah, okay. So this API shutdown only hits third-party developers who built stuff on top of it.
Correct. That's who it impacts directly.
And, well, this deprecation wasn't exactly a total surprise, was it?
No, not really. It was actually planned and announced back in April 2025 when they launched GPT 4.1.
Right.
They gave developers 3 months to transition. OpenAI basically framed GPT 4.5 as an experimental thing, saying the learnings were carried into future models, especially around creativity and writing nuance.
So an experiment that ran its course, essentially.
Pretty much. Now, community speculation does suggest maybe high compute costs played a role, especially since OpenAI recently slashed the cost of GPT 3.5, which they call O3 internally, by like 80%.
Yeah, that can make sense.
So developers now have, less than a month before that API shutdown to migrate over to GPT 4.1 or other models.
Okay. Shifting gears now to another major player in this space. Let's talk about Google's really aggressive push for enterprise dominance in AI. They've made some pretty significant moves with their Gemini 2.5 models.
Yeah, Google has moved very decisively. They've promoted Gemini 2.5 Pro and Gemini 2.5 Flash out of experimental preview status. They're now generally available for enterprise production use.
Okay, production ready.
And crucially, they've also introduced Gemini 2.5 Flashlight, positioning that one as the most cost-effective option for really high-volume tasks.
What's fascinating to me here is Google's emphasis on reasoning or thinking capabilities. How does that actually translate into a benefit for businesses?
Well, unlike maybe some traditional language models, these Gemini 2.5 models can process problems more deliberately, kind of step by step before giving an answer.
Right.
They call it a thinking budget, and it gives developers this, unprecedented control. You can tell the model to think longer for really complex reasoning tasks, which helps accuracy, or tell it to respond super quickly for simple queries, which saves cost.
Ah, so it's like tuning the engine for the job at hand.
Exactly. It's about providing the right level of intelligence for the specific task, optimizing both how well it works and how much it costs.
So if I'm running a business, the headline here sounds like Google's giving you a whole spectrum of tools. You can precisely match your needs and budget, from the super powerful down to the ultra efficient.
That's precisely it. Gemini 2.5 Pro excels at the really complex reasoning, advanced coding, multimodal stuff. It can process up to 1 million tokens of context.
Wow, that's huge, like 750,000 words.
Roughly, yeah. Imagine analyzing entire code bases or massive documents with that. Then Flash balances capability and efficiency for high-throughput things like summarizing lots of documents or powering responsive chatbots.
Okay.
And Flashlight, it sacrifices some intelligence for pretty dramatic cost savings, ideal for stuff like classification, translation. With Flashlight, the thinking part is off by default, but you can still turn it on with an API parameter if you need it.
They're really trying to cover all the bases for enterprise workloads.
Absolutely. And this isn't just theory, right? We're seeing real companies using these already.
Yeah, like who?
Well, Snap Inc. is using Gemini 2.5 Pro for spatial intelligence in its AR glasses. Smart Bear is using Gemini 2.5 Flash to translate manual test scripts into automated ones.
Oh, cool application.
And Connective Health is using the models to pull vital medical info out of complex free text records. So that really shows these models have hit a reliability level needed even for mission-critical, sometimes regulated industries.
That's a strong signal. And what about the pricing? You mentioned cost effectiveness.
Yeah, Google's pricing decisions also show they're determined to compete aggressively. For Gemini 2.5 Flash, the input token cost went up slightly, but the output token cost dropped significantly.
Put cost down. Okay, so that benefits apps that generate long answers.
Exactly, which is a very common enterprise use case, right? Think detailed reports, summaries, code generation.
Makes sense. And what's particularly notable, I think, is how they simplified things for buyers. They got rid of that old distinction between thinking and non-thinking pricing.
Yes. That makes cost prediction much easier for businesses planning budgets. And then introducing Flashlight at that even lower price point creates this new bottom tier specifically designed to capture really price-sensitive workloads.
Which really contrasts with OpenAI's strategy. Sometimes feels like they push you towards the most capable and, yeah, usually most expensive models.
It does seem different, yeah. This three-tier lineup, good, better, best positions Google to grab customers across pretty much all budget ranges, and it gives them clear upgrade paths as their needs grow. It's a very comprehensive market strategy.
Very strategic. And something else new for the Gemini app, kind of on the consumer side, Google's rolling out video upload and analysis.
Yeah, pretty cool development for the app. It means you can now add your own video files directly into a prompt, not just paste in YouTube links anymore.
Okay, so upload my own video.
Then what?
Then Gemini will analyze the video, and you can ask questions about what's in the clip.
Huh, like what?
Well, the examples they gave were like you could upload a home video and ask what time is showing on a Nest Hub in the background.
Okay.
Or ask for a description of, say, a peaceful forest scene you recorded. It's rolling out now for both free and paid accounts on Android and iOS. Not on the web version yet, though.
Interesting. A practical use for multimodal AI right in your pocket.
Exactly.
Okay, finally, let's dive into Anthropic. They seem to be taking, a distinctly different path from OpenAI and Google, don't they? With this really strong focus on what they call interpretable AI.
They absolutely are. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei has been making this urgent push for needing to understand how AI models actually think, why they produce certain answers, not just what they produce.
Right, and Anthropic itself has that origin story, founded by former OpenAI folks over safety concerns.
Exactly. Founded in 2021 by 7 OpenAI employees worried about AI safety, they adhere to what they call constitutional AI.
Constitutional AI, what does that mean practically?
It means their models are built on, human-valued principles. Things like being helpful, honest, and harmless. It's baked into their training. Okay. Now, while Anthropic's models, like Claude 3.7 Sonnet, have done really well on coding benchmarks, some rivals, like Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro, OpenAI's O3, seem to dominate in other areas, like math or creative writing, or just overall reasoning.
That's true, based on current benchmarks.
So given that, what is Anthropic's key differentiator if it's not just being the best performer across every single category?
Well, their focus is strictly on this interpretable AI. The goal is to give us some kind of window into what the model is thinking, how it arrives at a specific conclusion.
Yeah.
Amodei has said he fears that without interpretability, we have no idea why it chooses certain words over others or why it occasionally makes a mistake despite usually being accurate.
Right, the black box problem.
Exactly. And he argues this opacity, this lack of understanding, holds AI models back from reaching their full potential, especially for preventing things like hallucinations or, unintended, maybe unethical behavior.
So he sees his transparency as absolutely critical, particularly in high-stakes situations.
Precisely. He emphasizes it's critical for high-stakes financial or safety-critical settings. Think medical diagnosis or mortgage assessments, places where legal regulations often require AI to explain its decisions.
You need that audit trail.
Right. Amodei's goal is pretty ambitious. He believes interpretability can reliably detect most model problems by 2027.
Wow, that's soon.
And to back that up, Anthropic has invested $50 million in a lab called Goodfire, which is developing AI brain scans. Their platform, Ember, tries to identify learned concepts within the models and even lets users manipulate them.
Fascinating. Trying to actually map the concepts inside the model. But, not everyone agrees that interpretability is the silver bullet, right? What are some other viewpoints?
That's a crucial point. Yeah, there's debate. Sayash Kapoor, an AI safety researcher at Princeton, he argues that while interpretability is valuable, it's neither necessary nor sufficient to guarantee models behave safely.
Okay, so valuable, but not the whole story.
Exactly. He suggests it's just one tool within a larger toolbox of control strategies. That toolbox also includes things like filters, robust human-centered design, testing.
Mhm.
Kapoor also warns against what he calls the fallacy of inscrutability, this idea that we can't use or regulate something responsibly if we don't fully understand every single internal detail. He emphasizes that reliability, how it performs under real-world conditions, is what truly matters most.
So for Kapoor, it's less about peeling back every layer of the AI's brain and more about just ensuring its outputs are consistently safe and reliable, however complex the insides are.
That seems to be his argument. Yeah. He also makes this interesting distinction between a model's inherent capability and its actual power. He argues a model's real-world power is really limited by the interfaces we give it to interact with things.
Like how much access it has?
Right. And he's been critical of Amade's calls for things like export controls on AI tech, suggesting they only buy maybe a year or two of lead time at most.
Hmm.
He advocates for treating AI more like a normal technology, like electricity or the internet, and focusing on the long game of transforming industries responsibly.
And we've even seen NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, weigh in on this pretty directly, didn't he? Openly disagreeing with Amade's approach.
Yeah, Huang famously said something like, if you want things to be done safely and responsibly, you do it in the open. Don't do it in a dark room and tell me it's safe.
Strong words. So a real diversity of perspectives on the best path forward for safety and control.
Definitely. Now, Anthropic has clarified that Amode is advocating for more like a national transparency standard for AI developers, not necessarily limiting development just to themselves or a select few.
Okay, transparency standard, not a complete lockdown.
Right. Ultimately, though, this focus on interpretability could become a key differentiator for Anthropic in the competitive market. It might lead to more trusted, compliant, and adaptable AI systems, especially for enterprises in those really high-stakes fields we mentioned.
So wrapping this all up, what does this mean for you, whether you're building with AI or just encountering it more in your daily life?
Well, we've seen OpenAI making these aggressive moves, big government contracts, new data integration tools, while also, managing some developer concerns about model changes.
Right. Then Google is pushing super hard for enterprise dominance with its tiered Gemini models, really emphasizing that reasoning capability in competitive pricing, plus adding new multimodal stuff like video analysis.
And Anthropic is doubling down on interpretable AI, really trying to understand the mind of the AI, even as other experts are debating the best way to ensure safety and control.
These aren't just, abstract tech updates happening somewhere else. These developments are actively shaping the future of how we all interact with and rely on AI.
Absolutely. In our jobs, in our personal lives.
Hmm.
The choices these companies are making right now have these profound implications for innovation, for safety, for competition in this incredibly fast-moving AI landscape.
So as these AI models become more and more powerful and they get deeply embedded in our critical systems, maybe the question for you to think about is, what balance should we be striking between, deploying these things rapidly versus that deeper, maybe more challenging pursuit of truly understanding them and ensuring ethical control over these complex intelligences?
Yeah, it's a huge question. What stands out to you as the most critical area for AI development to focus on moving forward? Something to mull over.